This is your Interstate on the Interstate.
Hi, welcome back to part 2 of this conversation with Ute. Here we talk about her experience of being so dedicated to just one lineage. We also talk about the internal experiences within plant medicine ceremonies, weaving other teachings and modalities into the whole experience. Hope you enjoy. I personally have not come across anyone who's that sure and dedicated and straight with, like that.
Yeah, I mean, also most of the people I know, they are more interested in different plants, and they are going in different ceremonies with different lineages. And sometimes, I'm also questioning it, but I get so many more teachings and it gets so much more defined that I'm very, very happy and grateful with it. And, also when it goes around singing the Icaro, I know that some people, they learn Icaros from different plants and they sing them from different plants and they bring them together. And somehow for me, it's also a feeling more from my belly area. There's this sense like I want to learn more and more about just that energy, how to channel more and more that energy. And I mean, I got also very curious, like I learned in a practical way. I got also curious how to translate all that things and how to bring this energy also out, not just in ceremony. I got this insight and realization that the trees were like, hey, we can't walk. You're a human and you're dieting us. So bring the energy from us in different ways and channels also to people who are not here to drink the medicine.
Yes.
I'm learning now like this different ways how to support and work with people in different ways, where we connect psychology and spirituality and wholeness, but also for people who are not drinking it. But how can I just let myself be guided? And I will see where this goes.
I think with not just the tree that you're talking about, but I think with a lot of plants, it's about that and bringing the consciousness that we get in that realm and applying it into this experience. And I think it just happens. We can even do it without words, with just our presence, because it's in us. It's like interwoven into our consciousness. And so everything that we do naturally is going to bring that kind of energy. But, you can also be more intentional about it, which actually comes back to the conversation that we started with before recording this podcast, which is how much are we intentionally putting in action and effort towards something, or how much do we just allow it to happen? And I think that that's relevant to that sort of question as well, is like, are there things that we can tangibly do? Like, for example, I've been on some clubhouse rooms or, even creating this podcast to share this information. It's like, these are some action steps that we're doing as human bodies with that consciousness. It's like we're doing some things to take action, but at the same time, it's like, for me, all of these things that I'm doing are also just, it's so guided and natural.
Absolutely. But you did also so much learning and realization to realize how to be guided, how to do the dance to be guided, right? I mean, I don't know who is listening, but I think sometimes for people it's like how to be guided,
right?
Like differentiating like beliefs and patterns and conditions, which guide just through thoughts and how your environment shaped your guidance from thoughts. And this is again where we spoke before about, I'm orientated on the result, or do I experience like a kind of intuition? Do I experience something in my body? How I'm connected to consciousness? How present I am? How do I feel the true guidance, and where it feels true and where it's not for everyone
natural or easy or
to understand.
clear. True.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a very good point.
And I think plants help. For me
Yeah.
personally, I'm not sure how it's for you, but I think like the plants are really helping us to cleanse our senses for the guidance. But for me also, it's included like making our psychological, historical, learned patterns more transparent.
Yeah.
So that we can distinguish now is anything activated in us which is a learned condition, or is there like a flow of energy in a more bigger universal context where we feel guided. I think the plants also for that are teachers and helpers.
In your experience with your depth of experience and going to dietas for long periods of time and many, many ceremonies, you probably don't even know the range of how many, or do you? Like so many, like you can't even count it. And it's beyond even that. But I wonder, is it still kind of unfolding these layers of still seeing the patterns? And then are they just becoming more subtle and more refined? Or do you feel like you have cleared all these patterns and now you're working from a new place? I don't know, because I don't know what your experience is. I can only share from mine, you know?
I mean, I don't. Yeah, I'm interested also to hear from you how it is for you. Also, I'm still in clarifying patterns and seeing patterns and realizing patterns and having old emotions coming up and realizing I'm acting out of the past and not being fully present. And there's still a lot of work for me always to do and to realize. But I think I'm learning more and more tools to realize faster, to notice faster. Oh, this is this neediness from this little Ute who was longing for that, and this is now in a subtle layer playing out, you know, like realizing, noticing it. Or, there's a protective mechanism which comes from that and that, which is now playing out. Or, I'm avoiding that or that. I think I'm getting faster and faster with noticing when things from the past play out, which are not relating to the pure present. But I'm always fully in process, and I don't know if this stops at some point. I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
I find it all so interesting because we have these experiences. Yeah, we can be sitting in the same space, but each of our individual processes can be completely different, right? I mean, and sometimes they are connected. Often there are, energetic shifts that happen on a kind of collective level. And so I'm always curious to know, like, what's happening inside of each person's little mind. And I don't need to know all of it, but it's like I have my own experience as a point of reference. And I think we make a lot of assumptions maybe about what other people experience based on what we experience, thinking that that's more of a universal experience. But the visions and things that I see sometimes are on the collective level. Sometimes it is my personal story, but I feel a lot of my work mentally and emotionally has been, and spiritually, maybe stepping towards the non-dual experience, or just experiencing wholeness, which includes the whole range of all the patterns, but it's not with the judging mind of observing it. It's just observing it and being neutral about it. And in that way, then it feels easier to there's no attachment there if we're not like in it and we're just observing it. And so I think somehow focusing my mind to that kind of awareness allows me to experience seeing things that are beyond my personal programming and story, and more about the collective programming. And in the way that I often deal with whatever things are coming up, whether those are patterns or judgments, is I just take full responsibility. So if I'm seeing that on the collective level, then I take responsibility for that. And there was one ceremony where the visions that came were like I was being guilty of all the things that we as society have said, these are the worst things. In that ceremony, I had to take responsibility for those things and then forgive myself for that. And that was one of the most powerful experiences, just because in reality, we're all part of the same consciousness. And so to keep pushing things like that away and saying, that's not mine, I don't do that, it's a lie, because it's all part of the whole, you know? And that's part of, I think, the collective process. So to say it's like individual, collective, it doesn't really matter in a sense. It's kind of the same in a way.
Yeah, and it's about liberation.
Yeah.
And if we can realize that, everything what we see outside is also a part in us, it's liberating.
Yeah.
Also, if we go through it, it's liberating. Every kind of limitation what I experience for myself is a chance for liberation, because if I break through the limitation, it's a huge liberation. So if I see limitations, for me, it's also always like, hey, inquire, because when I go through it, it's a liberation.
Can you give an example? Like, are you talking more in ceremony or life, or both?
I think it's both, because I think ceremony is always a reflection to life.
Yeah,
it's
life
just
is the
intense.
Ceremony.
And ceremony, it's just, for me, it intensified my issues where I'm right now at, and in a symbolic, metaphoric way. Sometimes very clear and present. Sometimes in a metaphoric way, but it's putting the microscope on something where I need to work on from a higher perspective, which I usually can't choose. Maybe I have an intention, but it usually shows up in a very different way. For example, I moved after many 2008. I left my home, and I just decided to have a new home in last December. So in this last 12 years, I was in Berlin 2012 and 13, where I was for 1.5 years. But besides that, I was always moving on the road, traveling, working in different places. I didn't have a home.
Yeah.
And when I was a teenager, I was losing my home, for me, in a very, very difficult way. So I was the last month, I was enjoying my home here in your neighborhood, why we are sitting now here together. And I enjoyed so much my home. And then now some really great, amazing work possibility came up for me, but I need to leave Peru for this work. And it was like, the idea first was that I do this work for 3 months. And I experienced like huge fear of losing or going away from my home. And it was like this huge resistance inside of myself, like many emotions came up. And when I lost this home, for me, in a very traumatic, not processed way, I was 15 years old. I'm now 39. But there came up this frustration, anger, fear, and many body sensations. I want to be here at home. I want to be here at home. I don't want to leave my home. And then with all this virus thing, maybe I'm not coming back. So a lot of fears and stuff got triggered. And I felt like, hey, there's a kind of limitation coming up. I see it's all past stuff.
Right.
But it's a kind of, it would limit my way, my path. If I would say, I'm not taking this work opportunity because I enjoy so much my home right now, I would somehow limit new opportunities to come in and do. And so this is just a practical limitation, what I sensed, where I felt like, okay, I need to work through all these emotions, through all these sensations in my body. It was strong. It was sometimes in the night. It was like also old symptom where I was sweating in the night.
Wow.
It was like waking up and having pressure on the chest and having a lot of anger coming up, like a lot of things I knew. It's not something from the present. I knew it's old, deep stuff which wants to be felt and seen. And I had that in many other situations in ceremonies I thought I had worked through it, but it came up again. And this having a home and leaving my comfort zone, leaving my home where I feel so home.
Yeah.
So this was a type of limitation where I worked through, and now I feel like I'm completely liberated.
Wow.
And even we made a new deal, not 3 months, 5 weeks.
Wow.
But like energies, things got moved. But this is a very practical way. But I also mean like I think many challenges we have with limitations with our mind, you know. For example, I have to behave in a certain way in ceremony. If the medicine gets strong, I can't scream, I can't get loud. I have to sit upright. I have that and that kind of experience. And then there comes a moment where you let go of this limitation. Hey, I have to have my shit together. You know, and
It's a good one.
When you realize, hey, let go, and then how to let go of this. I have to have my shit together, and I know that since I was a teenager, I wanted to have my shit together. I wanted to be strong. I wanted to have my shit together. I was more like this more like, you know, like in a group. I was there for everyone, and I have my shit together, and I could experience that this very often in ceremony. Were blocking to go more far out, to go more far out, because there was this fear. If I let go of holding myself together, maybe people will notice I don't have my shit together. Or I will notice I don't have my shit together. And I know there was this was especially in the beginning and half time. It was very tricky for me to let go of this tension. It was a kind of tension holding together. And I found a way to put my head down and breathing through it, where I lost all my identity and where I lost like everything.
Yeah.
And I realized how liberating it is not knowing anymore who am I.
Yeah.
Not knowing I'm a human, not knowing I'm Ute, not knowing anything, just being out somewhere in space and just breathing, not knowing I have a body, not knowing what is a body.
Yeah.
This is something what plant medicine, or for me, ayahuasca could give me, this like letting go of everything, not knowing who am I, but then finding peace in it, in a ceremony, in a process. And then at some point, structure comes back. And I think it's a kind of new structure. And then also I think it reflects in daily life that something in my mind shifted in a way that I was less concerned how I am for others. That I maybe on subtle layers started to do more my own thing, saying my own thing, doing my own thing with less how do I need to fit in the ideas of others. I think ceremonies very often give us the space to feel and sense very strong a limitation, and somehow we find a way to break through it. Same, I think, with trauma, like trauma also is tightening together, and holding together and not letting energy fully flow because we have something tied up and constricted.
I think what you said of the feeling like you need to have your shit together, that's such a big thing. And when I look at social media, there's so much of this, I want to present myself in this particular way, but it's even beyond social media, even in ceremony, even in a space where it's completely dark, even if you don't know anybody else, it's like you can still feel those mechanisms. But I think that is something that's so deep. And I think the root of that can be for some somewhat of a trauma response or a survival mechanism, like I have to fit into this society, this family, this whatever, and kind of mold myself to fit it, or else I won't fit in, I'll get kicked out, I'll die, and
I'm not loved.
Yes. Yeah. I'm not accepted for who I am, blah, blah, blah. We have so many of these collective and societal level beliefs that it's so each person that does this work that can let go of that pattern, and even if it's for a little bit, even if it's not forever, that each little shift does something for the whole. Yeah. But I think when we trace back a lot of the, and to be honest, the process of like finding whatever pattern is, to me, it's a lot of what I learned in theta healing, where it's basically doing digging work, and you find what is really at the core, what is the root belief, and then you also ask like, okay, and how does that serve you? Finding the positive side to every what seems to be negative pattern or belief. And that is usually what helps to unlock something, like basically not allowing yourself to be fully you or authentic helps you to fit into a family, be loved. And it's like when we feel those things and accepting that we already have those things, of being loved, of being accepted, that we're allowed to be who we are, then it actually releases some of that tension. Plant medicine's often, it takes us to the experience of that. Sometimes not consciously. Sometimes it's just we experience it and feel it, but we don't even know how or why. And I think that that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I also did theta healing courses. Like before I came to Peru, I found it was a big opener for me to come to Peru, and also like this digging work and theta healing. And now I'm learning from different approaches also, like digging into beliefs. What is the belief? What did you make that mean when you were a child? When you were a child and you were alone, and could you talk with someone? You couldn't talk with someone. What did you make it mean? Oh, I'm alone. I have to deal with it alone. I have to have my shit together, No one is understanding me. Pain doesn't have a place. Or what about vulnerability? And I think this is from, I don't know how your experience is, but my experience is that really showing vulnerability is a huge thing for many people. It's very difficult for many people. And for myself as well, like a few years ago, I didn't know what you meant with, if someone talked about vulnerability, I didn't know really what to do with that. And I experienced it just the last years, like exploring my vulnerability and what is in the way to be vulnerable. And I think this is a huge global and collective thing, what I see at least, like for men and for women, showing up, being vulnerable. How different could we connect, and how would things change in the world if we could feel safe enough to show up vulnerable?
So what does it mean for you now?
What it means for me now is being authentic and really having less shell around, less protection around, and sharing authentically from the heart, and through opening up more vulnerable also towards myself, and my internal process shows me much more emotions. And for me, like going into the body, going into emotions and allowing myself to feel it, opens new wisdom and opens new fields how to connect to the present moment and how to connect to myself. There's more energy moving, and there's more openness. To the same time, it's sometimes scary. And to the same time, I still feel like sometimes I'm closing up and I don't want to go there, but that's okay. But it opens up a full range of more emotions I was not aware about. What shows me also many, many new parts of Ute. And I could explore that there were in the field of when I really can open up to be vulnerable, that there were parts which were separated from me. And with being vulnerable and allowing these energies of these emotions to come into the field and that I consciously feel them makes me more whole, and there's wholeness. and there's no separation anymore. And this is interesting also in the work with the Shibibo maestros, because with the Icaro and with the energetically patterns, what I learn and diet with my maestros together to see or to sing to, I can see similar energetically sometimes separations of parts from parts which are not acknowledged and not fully felt. They call it actually also trauma, that when we don't feel fully, we separate, and it's a trauma, and they weave it together into the field in the Icaro. Sometimes, it's a process. It's not happening. Maybe for some people, maybe it happens in one ceremony, but for some people, it happens in 50 ceremonies
versus like a big tapestry.
And it's and I think this is part of what we sometimes feel in ceremony or after ceremony. We feel things, we experience things, and we can't tag it, we can't name it, but it's often this way of that parts and energies which are separated but belong to us gets on an energetically layer with the Icaro in ceremony. They get again weaved into our field. When there's energy not flowing, the channels get connected, the Kano connects to the other parts of energy so that the light and the plant energy can flow through and make it again whole. And this is for me very interesting, when we explore like the psychological things, emotionally things, mentally things, how I can connect it to the energetically work, what the Shibibo maestro does. And he doesn't know about our mental, emotionally, social struggles. They don't know where we come from. We have such a different life. We live so differently. We experience so differently. But they do the work on the energetically layer. And I'm fascinated to connect this energetically work with, with that's why I call it psycho-spiritual, because it's the psychology and the spirituality is for me like the energetically work, what I learn with them. And I love to make that more and more whole and to bridge for myself, to connect and bridge that together.
You realize in a way you're doing what they're doing, which is seeming separate parts of humanity and stitching and weaving that together.
But it's the same. It's just the energetically pattern of our psychology and emotions, mentally stuff. It's just how it looks energetically.
But you're doing that work, and not so many people are to that level of being able to see what they're actually doing. I think that they have this whole amazing lineage and technique of working with energy that I think has existed, like different ways of working with energy. It has existed in different places in the world, and some people have retained that more through lineages. And it's just, I find it really amazing that you're stitching together their work with the sort of Western mind, which
it's fascinating. For me, it's so fascinating. And also how, like sometimes what I also experience is in ceremony, that it's not that the maestro is doing that. I mean, I'm not seeing it like stitching actually, but I mean, that's my personal, and other people see it maybe differently. And my maestros probably would say it maybe completely differently. But what I experience is they awake and call in the energy of the plants they were dieting. And this energy is where they open up the dimension to this tree or that tree. They open up the Nötte, the world of this tree, calling in this energy, the good energy, the raccoon, the metza, the good energy with the light. They call it in and they sing to this energy of the tree, and then this energy does its thing. And I don't know if the right word is also when I open up and I activate the energy of a tree which I were dieting, and I let this energy do the work in its own way. If I can say it's self-organizing process. I'm right now exploring a lot about that, because I think our mind is a self-organizing process. I think universe is a self-organizing process. And for me, it's really interesting just to explore how energy is organizing itself. If it comes from the plants, if it comes from the stars, from the moon, from our human system. I mean, in general, for me, it's very interesting to explore how energy is organizing itself and which part do we play with our intention and focus.
And when, to me, what I hear is when you say self-organizing, which self are you referring to?
Yeah, interesting, huh? It in itself. Is energy organizing in itself? I don't know.
If we are energy, then yeah.
Consciousness in itself.
Yeah, like I differentiate self being the small I self and the big I self, the small I self being this personally identified self, and the big I being the universal whole self. And so, you know, when you're talking about the self-organizing thing, it's like, well, on this level, I'm not sure. On this level, I think so. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that just another way to come back to the bigger I in a way? I don't know.
Like the bigger I in universal way?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of, in my current way of perceiving, which I'm always open to being wrong about.
Yeah, me too. I'm maybe in a few weeks I would say something different, you know? But yeah, it's all in process, and we are always learning and changing.
Yeah. But the current way I'm holding on to how I perceive, or the best way that I can, is the oneness, the wholeness, and that every single modality or thing is just pointing back to that. And that's it.
Yeah.
And it's simple in that way.
Yeah. I like that.
I'm exploring the concept of non-duality and living through that, and how through that, then what you do, like, that's where what we want comes into play, and what you were talking about of when do we take action or when do we allow. And to me, it's just coming from that place of will, but the will that is not the personally identified will, but the will of the whole. And in that sense, I think we all end up naturally following what our sort of purpose or path is. And in a way, there's not even a wrong path if we are following that will.
When you use will, what do you mean by that?
So I think of one of the Course in Miracles lessons, which is my will is God's will, and that's it. It's when that's aligned, where it's not, there's no separation between those. Then that it's coming from that place of just, okay, I want to do this. It came when I went to this mountain which stands over this neighborhood, Pitusirai, and I was talking to the mountain. And I don't know if you communicate with mountains in the same way that you do with plants, but I do. So I had a whole conversation with it, and I had my intention. The whole journey there was basically like a ceremony. And I was kind of asking for clarity about what I should do, because I'm doing many things, many projects, and I enjoy doing so many different things. And I was like, I need clarity. And the answer that I got was, do whatever you want. But from the most like loving, joyous place of like, you're completely free to do whatever you want. And it showed me actually these subtle little patterns that I had still been holding on to of thinking that there's some things that I should do. And should do is very different from just want to do, you know?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think this is for many people a thing, you know, how limiting is the should. And where did we learn the should? You know, where does the should come from? And how can we notice when the should comes in, you know, and being kind and having compassion for the should, but and also letting go of it. Yeah, I really resonate with your will is my will, and the reality, universal will, God will, my will, and getting one in that. I'm learning with the diamond approach, and this is also in some of the parts, this shows also up there. It includes meditation, it includes sensing practice, and it includes self-inquiry. Like really what I really like is it's like all the psychological angles, what it gives you to understand, and then also really to learn to inquire and just hold what is there. Going into the resistance, going whatever is present, whatever is there, being not fighting, not wanting to change, just being with it. And it does its own thing, you know. And the fantastic thing is that the longer you are be with something, it changes its form and its shape, and it changes shape and form, and it dissolves at some point, you know. Even if you fall into the dark, let yourself fall, and look, where are you falling, and exploring that with curiosity and openness. The plants is also all about feeling through, going through, not resisting, not fighting, just being with it. When you fight and when you resist, look at it. What do I resist? What is the reflection to me in real life? Being curious and open. And with the diamond approach, it's for me like a beautiful addition with the plants to understand more actually what I learned with the plants. I'm in the end of the training, in the end of the year training with Dr. Gabor Mate. It's for me the same. I learned and experienced so much with the plants, but sometimes I missed grabbing it also from a Western mind perspective.
To be able to communicate about it.
Yeah, communicate about it, to get even more clarity about it. Because sometimes I think it's good to give things words and give things a kind of idea to learn to differentiate and to learn to distinguish more. So I like to combine different approaches and different angles. And it's all about what we spoke before the podcast. It's all about the same.
Yeah.
It's the same, but there are different angles to see and to understand.
Like a diamond, right?
Yeah.
And the light that shines through it might come through different angles, but it's still the light.
Yeah.
Like that, right?
Yeah. And if we, you know, and even if we want to, what I also find interesting, I also started with the interpersonal neurobiology course where a lot gets explained what's happening actually in the brain, and it's the same.
Yeah, right.
And it's just interesting to understand it from what is happening actually in the brain when I experience that and that and that, and how does this fit into ceremony space? It's all the same, just different facets and angles. Yeah.
I also think, you're saying it's nice to put words to things, but Course in Miracles line is words are symbols of symbols twice removed. And that like sometimes not naming things or not needing to name things can sometimes allow us to get in touch with the experience more.
Yeah.
But, having communication devices, words, it serves a purpose, it serves a purpose of being able to talk about it.
Yeah.
I also think that we have the capability to communicate without words, and especially in the plant medicine space, that I don't know if everyone experiences that, but I do.
Absolutely. But I think I went extremely through a few years experience without having words.
Oh my gosh.
Just experience with the shibibos in ceremony. And then it came from me the idea, I want what I experience, I want to find words for it.
Right. How did you process that whole experience just with yourself? Like that time where you were so deep?
Mainly with myself. I had some friends who also were dieting, and where I could share, of course, also, and getting confirmation and having the feeling I'm seen and understood, what is really important.
Yeah.
To be seen and understood, in times where there's a lot of confusion, because transformation also means confusion, because when all the structure gets loose and shaken up, there are moments where you don't know who you are, you don't know what to do, you don't know what is real and what is not real, and you don't know, do I have a perspective, do I want to have a perspective, do I want to have a view? No, there's a lot of confusion, and in that times it's important someone who understands, also without words, but just seeing you and understanding. It's all good, But mainly I did a lot by myself. But I have to say, these 2-3 friends who were here and there with me in the perfect moment, it was like very important. Yeah, very important. And I had always this deep trust, that it's all good. And this, I think, came through my maestros, like working with one lineage and working with the same plants gave me like a space and somehow a connection where, you know, I didn't change lineages. I didn't change plants, let's say. I had this energetically field where I'm held. And I mean a lineage. There's so much, I see it in a way like memory stored of knowledge and of teachings. And also being in the world from mainly one tree. I mean, the world of the tree was and is holding me, and all the teachings and all the washing, cleansing through and shaked through happened all in this structure of one lineage and one tree. And the lineage where I'm working with, they are very, very famous and well known and well respected, and they had all their ancestors. There were Onayas and Murayas. Onayas are the one who knows, and the Murayas are the highest, as far as I know, the highest spiritualists in the Shipibo tradition. They say they are not anymore living here on earth. So there is, through the Icaro, through the work from my maestros, I think I was and I am held in a very safe, energetically field. And this is what is guiding me, what is protecting me, what is in interaction with me all the time. And I think this is for me like a huge blessing to be with one lineage, because I'm with them. Also the one who are not anymore here, they come through the Icaro, the energy comes through, because the Icaros, the songs, which is the main tool from the Shipibo maestros, where they connect you with universe, they connect you to the world of the plants, what they channel through. I mean, these are Icaros they learned from their teachers and from their families, and some of them maybe they learned by themselves, but there's always the influence from their teachers. From their teachers is the influence from their other teachers. So it's all this. I don't know how many teachers went through that, and the plants which went through them to teach me and of course other students. So there is a huge safety net, what is far more than I can imagine. So I felt all the time really safe, even if the biggest, most challenging things happened. I could feel safe, you know. I mean, there were moments, when everything breaks apart. I had maybe 2 ceremonies I have now in mind. Or maybe there were 3 where really shit hits the fan internally, where I really had moments where I was doubting everything. And I felt, okay, and if I get my shit together, if I get my mind together again, I pack my stuff and I'm leaving, you know. This is part of it. I mean, that's what when our mind gets completely shoot out and completely away, and it's too personal for me to share here in the podcast, but like really things happened. There were moments where I thought, okay, I never ever find back in a human life. I never ever probably will be possible to live my life alone. I will need help. I can't live anymore my life. What is part of a journey, because our mind, something's happening in our mind when we lose completely everything, and we find ourselves for me this is a big thing, asking for help. I have big issues being helpless. Very, very difficult for me. Even if I say it now, it's like, oh my God, the worst thing. And there were these moments, but my maestros were always there. They were sing to me, they were sit next to me until this energy got cleaned out. Until the energy was out, until the last demon, the last worst energy, wherever it came from, was really cleaned out of every cell. And trust and groundingness and everything could come back, and I could find myself back, maybe not the same as before, but back in a place where I felt like, okay. So I felt really always very, 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 very supported from my maestros on an energetically level and on a heart level.
Yeah.
Even if they, with their mind and ideas, don't know how my mind works as a German woman, but they were always there when needed.
Yeah.
And they were there a day after to explain me from their perspective what happened, even if it was quite foreign for me. They were there, and I could, like step by step integrate with my own experience and connecting the dots.
Yeah, I see. Wow.
But I would say, in general, I would recommend people to go somewhere with a facilitator.
Right.
That's why I love
an intermediary, because sometimes people, when they say facilitator, they think that means they're the one serving it. So someone who's there.
I see it as facilitator. For me, I mean as a bridge. Someone who understands the Western mind and someone who understands the diets and the energetically work and the, from, in my case, the work from the Shibibo maestros.
I'm clarifying because I've been tuning into the different ways that people use terms. For example, people confuse the word diet with dieta, what I mean? Or like dieting.
Like the fasting, like you have food restrictions, sex restrictions, you have behavioral restrictions to prepare.
Right.
And you have to connect to the plant, you need to purify your body. And there you have some restrictions what you need to do regarding food, etc.
Right.
And then you have a master plan diet or master plan dieta, where it's about you connect, you invite, you connect, you build up a relationship to another plant besides the ayahuasca. In my case, is trees, where you include the wisdom and the knowledge from another plant, which is like a teacher or a doctor in the Shibibo tradition, which is like a deeper layer of learning and healing besides just connecting to the ayahuasca. Yeah.
And then in other traditions, people use other plants as the master plant, like tobacco or San Pedro as the master plant.
Yeah.
This is all just for clarification because people use different terms. But I wanted to ask about, you said just now, doctor. It's like a doctor, because I remember I had an experience with the dieta with you. It was like this energy from the tree. This energy could just go into anything and that was needed if channeled to heal something. Is that, tell me, when you say doctor, like what you mean or what you've experienced?
This is a term from the Shibibos.
Right.
They say they are very playful, and it's the language from the Shibibos, as far as I learn and understand. It's very like picture language. So they say that like that plants are doctors also. Or teachers. So they and when you diet a plant, as dieting a plant, when you build up a relationship to another plant to teach or heal you. So they say like master plant diets. In Shibibo, it's Sama. Sama. They are there for two reasons. One reason is you want to learn. You want to learn. You want to go the path of learning. In the old times, you want to get a shaman. I think in these times today, many people just want to learn, to wake up, to get more conscious and to learn about energies and life. And the other option is you are sick, you need help. You need mentally help, you need emotionally help, or you need physically help. So they call them also doctors. Because depending, it's all connected, our mind, our emotions, and our body. And so the energies repair you or help you to be whole, or whatever kind of word we want to do, and energy comes in to heal out the things which are not in balance and to stitch together where there's a hole or a gap. So they call them also doctors, because they can heal you. And also many people, especially in the past, they came because they really were sick, and then they didn't drink ayahuasca. They came in ceremony, they got different plants to drink, they had to fast, so they had to do like a food diet, really basic food. and they just received the Icaro.
Right.
Just the Icaro and the different plants they were drinking, which were
Yeah.
different doctors, which work on the liver, on the skin, or here and there. And of course, it's all connected to the mind and to the emotions as well, or to the thoughts and the emotions. So that's why they call them doctor
Yeah.
and teacher, because when you drink ayahuasca also, you also learn, you
Yeah.
know. And I mean, healing and learning, for me, it goes together.
Yeah.
And I also, when I talk about healing, I don't talk about you need to be fixed or something is wrong with you.
Right.
For me, healing comes from a place, expansion, wholeness, getting, you know, like even more whole. I mean, for me, there's a more wholeness in experience and awareness. There's always, more gets included. And it's expansion, it's learning, it's growing. But it's not when I talk about feeling, hey, something is wrong, you need to get fixed.
Right.
It's just more expansion and being more open and growing more. And for me, this is limit. Also for me, it's without limit how much we can learn and grow.
You know, about the concept of like seeking or the seeker versus like you have found it, or like, you know, you don't need to seek anymore because you already know it and have it. Versus the like, okay, like there's more to learn, there's more to grow. At some point we can step into just that fullness, you know. You're saying how in the past the patient wouldn't actually drink ayahuasca and they would just receive the Icaros. And, you know, the first thing that popped into my head was, well, what happened? And my thought is, well, maybe they were more trusting and more open to just, you know, receiving the energy. And now with this I know mind, it's like we want to know what's happening, we want to see all that they're doing. I mean, I don't know. I'm curious if you have thoughts about why it used to be like that and now it isn't.
I mean, I spoke with many of the Shibibos, you know, in the beginning when I came there, I had this idea, most of the Shibibos are drinking ayahuasca. No.
Right.
I mean, they said they are scared. No.
Right.
They don't want to go there. No. So most of them, no. They say no, it's too scary. It's too much. They don't want to see that. So I think it came more from our Western societies that we got this sense of we want to learn, we want to know, we know there's more, and we need healing in the way of we need to get more conscious to heal, to heal our sick society, to heal our sick being and unbalanced being, because we miss awareness. And I mean, same when we look at Shibibo villages. I mean, they have so much trauma, there's so much out of balance. I don't know why it is like that. I don't know if at some point maybe more Shibibos are open to drink again, to heal, you know, because there's a lot of trauma, and it's very sad also, you know, how they live and what's going on there in their villages. It was like, you know, the shaman was the doctor.
Right.
So you go to the doctor when you need healing, and you got different plants to drink, and you were receiving a Icaro, and the doctor drank the ayahuasca to see your energy. So it was a very different setting somehow, you know. It was not this, I want to be more conscious. It was like, I want that you heal my headache. I want that you heal my pain in my belly. I want to get a child. Help me to get a child.
Right.
And then you got your plants and you were fasting and you received Icaros. And the receiving Icaro maybe was like a kind of surgery, or I don't know, you know, what a doctor does, or when you go in the hospital, what they do with you in the operation room. Was just a different medical system. Different medical system. And then at some point, you know, and the ayahuasca, only the one drank ayahuasca who wants to get a shaman. Because to get a shaman, you need to learn about energies. You need to see energies. So you need to diet and you need to drink ayahuasca.
Yeah.
So usually also my maestros told me they only gave ayahuasca in context with master plant diets. Because this is how you learn about energies. So ayahuasca was always bedded in a diet, because when you just drink ayahuasca, it's a very different experience than when an ayahuasca ceremony is bedded in the context of other plants. So for my maestros, it's not usual that people come and just want to drink ayahuasca. I mean, they do that because people want that, and but for them, it's like ayahuasca is hold embedded in a diet is even for them more safe and better to integrate. From the Western perspective, I sometimes say, hey, this person comes the first time. We just give them ayahuasca in a diet. It's too much commitment. It's too much overwhelmed this person. We start just with ayahuasca. But from the side of my maestros, this is something not usual. But for me, from a Western perspective, because I saw people who got overwhelmed with the diet, I say, stop. You know, and I come in with my Western mind thinking and taking care. First ayahuasca, then the person needs to integrate and see how the relationship is with ayahuasca, with self. And then we do the diet. But my maestros see that differently. So sometimes people come the first time. And I mean, I check on them, I talk with them before, and they start directly with a diet. So it's,
I mean, I'm thinking back to when we were talking about like how the plant grows. And ayahuasca doesn't just grow on its own, right?
No.
Ever.
It grows around the tree.
Yeah.
It grows around the other plant.
That just makes so much sense.
Yeah, very good observation. You said we can allow ourselves not to search. We can allow ourselves to feel whole. And I absolutely agree with that. And I think what came up for me is also, like, again, I think in that idea and in that sensation and feeling whole, and we don't need to search for something. It's also when we focus on just where we are at right now and not on a destination.
Right.
It also, I think we could combine that ideas from where I am right now, it's perfect.
Yeah.
And when I want to learn and I'm open, great.
Yeah.
But without running and searching after something.
Not believing that you don't already have everything.
You have everything what you need for right now. Yeah.
It's something I learned again through Course in Miracles teachings about the ego wants you to seek and not find. To always search for something more, for something better, for something different. Because in that process of constantly looking elsewhere, you never come to the present. Because in the present, in this fullness of this present moment, it can't exist there. That seeking mechanism is a defense against the present. But, you know, I think we can also be fully present and be guided to go somewhere, learn something, you know. It doesn't have to be like, oh, you can't learn anything or look or explore anywhere. Like, no. But it's just that small, it's like a tiny little shift in the mind of remembering, oh yeah, we have everything right here. Not in the future, not when we gain this certificate, not, you know, when we have X amount of money, not when we have this ideal person or whatever in our lives. It's to remember that we already have everything now.
Richness. That's richness for me. It feels like rich and full.
Yeah, I really appreciate all your sharing and your work and how deep you've been allowing yourself to go. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Paulette.
Thanks for listening to Your Inner State on the Interstate. For more information, visit yourinnerstate.love.